what are the signs that someone deeply loves you? Because I feel like we live in this world where we're always wondering, do they love me? Do they like me? Do they really like me? Are they really into me? How do you know when you deeply love someone and when someone deeply loves you? How do you even know?
So I'm gonna start with an answer that people probably won't expect. To me, the first key is, do you truly love them? Because look at it like this. To me, a lot of people get caught up in infatuation. They have unhealthy attachments. They have different motivations to why they decided this is the person that I want. And that can make them feel like they're in love. But to me, true love flows both ways. It's not a one-sided thing. So when you can say, I'm not into them like that. If we look deep into that situation, I can almost guarantee what we'll find is infatuation, attachment, something else. But when you can say, no, I feel it too. I'm deeply in love with them. I think that's your first key. Because without that, nothing else matters. Because a lot of people are choosing partners based off of, well, they love me so much, so I assume it's safe here, and this is a good choice to make. But the safe choice is usually the wrong choice. And a lot of these people select this individual thinking everything's gonna be okay, but because you're not really into them, you can never be what they need. And they were never truly what you needed, which is why you never even got to that level with them. So to choose them without first evaluating, do you truly love them, would not be wise.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think people struggle with that question too, because I think we think of love as so many different things wrapped into one. For example, I could think I love someone because of how they treat me. Mm-hmm. I could think I love someone because they have one quality that I really wish I had. Or I could love someone because I think that they're out of my league and they give me a bit of attention.
Yeah.
And so what we think is love is so complex and so wide that we never stop to ask ourselves, like, what does love mean? Like, what's the definition of love? Like, how do I define love? So how do you define love, and how do you encourage other people to create their definitions of love?
Well, for me, first off, is always God is love. And then when we take it from there, love is about kindness, compassion, patience, understanding, a willingness to be selfless and pour into that individual. But I think what's also important for people to understand is when we're trying to apply it to romantic relationships, we have to understand that there's other ingredients that are necessary before we can move forward. So you could love someone dearly, but if they are not emotionally ready, because maybe they haven't healed from their past, maybe there's still some things they need to work out in their life, then it wouldn't be time to move forward in a relationship with them. And we have this bad habit of the minute we feel like there's love there, we want to move forward.
Exactly.
And as you mentioned, we can get caught up sometimes in, well, we love them because of what they do for us, but what are you prepared to do for them? Love is about giving, all right? So we have to ask ourselves, okay, do we know what their needs are? Are we willing to fulfill those needs? Because if not, maybe this wasn't love. Maybe it just felt good in the moment. Maybe you got caught up in the hype. And that's okay. It happens to almost all of us, if not all of us, at some point in life. But we have to just be very clear with ourselves about what's really driving the intention right now. But I think all those things I mentioned is what encompasses love. And that's like the foundation of it. And then from there, we have to look at some other things to see how we can move forward.
Oof, so many times, like you convince yourself something's love. Mm-hmm. And what I find really interesting is that so many people fall in love too fast. And no one wants to go for the slow, patient, understanding love, which is what love requires. You just said love is kind, love is patient, love is understanding. Those things take time.
I think those things take time to nurture and to make sure that we're doing it correctly for each other. So it's about learning each other's love languages and how we make it work within that dynamic. I think also because so many people are not used to dealing with emotions on that level, being that vulnerable, people mishandle it, all right? So it takes time for us to get to a place so we understand how to manage this and work through this. However, I think that I'm a huge believer in connection. And I believe connection is like your spirit recognizing its match. And it's very instant. When you speak to couples who said they experienced a connection, they'll tell you first conversation, first time meeting, first date, first week, it was pretty fast. So to me, the recognizing of something deeper being here can happen very quickly. But how we now cultivate that and how we move forward is where we need to take our time and make sure we're not rushing and overlooking certain important issues that need to be discussed and addressed first.
To me, it's the understanding of chemistry versus compatibility, and the idea that there needs to be a spark, there needs to be a connection that I feel with someone, like you're saying, on a deeper level. But I find that most people are not adept at knowing whether the connection they feel with someone is deeper or physical.
Yeah.
Like, I would say that it's easy you can often feel a spark if you meet a lot of people, you can feel a spark with a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that they're the right person to build a relationship with, right?
Yes. So connection to me is a very rare occurrence.
Right, yes.
So I feel that people who've actually experienced it, they can tell you maybe once in their life, if you're lucky, 2 times maybe, all right? But it's not this thing that happens with everybody. Whereas chemistry, feeling a spark, these things can happen with a lot of different people.
Yes.
So I do think there's this education that's needed to understand how we differentiate these things so that we don't confuse them. Because I see a lot of people take that chemistry and think, oh, this is it, this is the one. And it's like, but you had chemistry with the last 5 people. Why is this one the one and not them? So I do think we have to be careful with that.
Yeah, I think so. So we're on the same page. There's 3 things. There's connection on the deeper level. There's chemistry, which is like the spark on a more superficial level. And then there's compatibility, which is like what makes it last. And I can relate to that with my wife. I definitely felt, so I'm one of those people who I kind of knew from the first few moments when I met my wife, before she was my wife, I was like, yeah, this is my person. Like, I felt that way.
Yeah.
For sure, I felt that connection. And there was chemistry there too, but it had to be turned into compatibility in order to create a long-lasting relationship. We've been together for 10 years. We're still learning, building, going through everything, but that was a big part of it. So that I can get behind. Do you see it that way too, or is there something different in how you see it?
Believe it or not, I used to make compatibility the least important, but that was because I was looking at it the wrong way. Once I kind of looked at the definition again, and compatibility is about 2 people coexisting in harmony, then I was like, okay, no, you have to have that. I got caught up more so in, like, let's say a dating site says, okay, we're gonna decide who's compatible. So I view compatible as like an on the paper, it looks good. It's supposed to match. But you can have a lot of people who are supposed to be compatible and it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
So I think that compatibility is that add-on. Once we have the connection and the chemistry, now we have to create that harmony, which is the compatibility.
Yes, I agree with you. And it is interesting how that word compatibility is thrown around. And you're so right that compatibility on paper doesn't mean compatibility in real life.
Exactly.
And to me, compatibility really has another word inside of it, which is like adaptability and that deeper understanding of an individual where you know how much you're willing to adapt around certain parts of the relationship. But we'll get to that. I think a lot of people, like, and that's where we got into this conversation around what is slow. A lot of people are waiting to feel like, is this person wasting my time or are they the one? And so they don't have a deeper connection. Maybe they had that spark of chemistry and now that's kind of subsided. How do you know if someone's wasting your time? How do you know if you're letting yourself be used or wasted in that way?
So to me, again, I think it always starts with self. And you have to be honest with yourself about, why are you still here? Why are you holding on? What's really driving you? Because, just use an example, let's say you're a woman and the only reason why you're holding on to this guy is because he's a nice guy. You don't feel like starting the process over with somebody else. So even though you're not feeling it with him, you figure, let me try to make it work. You're wasting your time. This is where you're setting yourself up for disaster every single time. So if it's not born out of a true connection, love, a genuine desire, you really like this individual, of course, there's always things we have to work through, but is the foundation strong enough for us to say, okay, we can make something special here? And I think once we are honest with ourselves, that kind of helps answer the question, because sometimes we get so caught up trying to analyze the other individual that it's like we get in our heads and now we're missing the mark on what's really important here.